Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth Vinland Saga read-through video, where I am reading through Vinland Saga for the first time, and I am joined by the expert of Vinland Saga, the man who's watched the anime twice and read the manga in its entirety.
Dude, I don't know how I'm not burnt out, honestly. I've been crawling through for this PV video, just things. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why I don't get bored of it. I know I'm feeling the burnout a little bit. But I've been reading some other manga recently that was really good. Sorry, I'm already going on a tangent. I'm going to keep on going, though. My name's Jarkey Bacon, by the way. I've just started reading 20th Century Boys, and it's not one that you hear talked about a lot, but I feel like everybody that you ask about it, everybody asks you that you ask about that manga, they're like, yeah, it's really, really good. It's Urasawa, who's also the author of Monster and Pluto, which I haven't read or watched of either of those, but dude, it's really good. It's really good, so hopefully I can cure my Vinland Saga brain rot with something else, though I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yes, well, okay, well, in this video, we're going to be talking about English Book 4, which is Japanese Volume 7 and 8, which is chapters 43 to 56, and it covers the entire anime, so yeah, woo, I finally made it. As well as two chapters at the territory end. Yeah, which are completely new.
Yeah.
Which was very exciting.
Yeah.
But in terms of the events that are in this book, we've got Canute and his company arriving at Gainsborough. I think that's how that's pronounced.
Yeah.
Where King Sweyn is located. Then we get Bjorn.
I guess you could say Gainsborough.
Gainsborough.
Instead of borough, because we don't, at least back then, I think they would have said borough. But in the
correct
UK,
way.
when you've got towns that are spelled borough, UK town names are bad. Just don't try and read them how they're that is awful.
Gainsborough. Is Gainsborough still a place? Is that a thing? Gainsborough, sorry.
I've never heard of it. Let's see, Gainsborough.
There's a lot of things where I see locations. I'm like, I wonder if that's still a thing. I know London.
Yeah,
that's
Gainsborough.
a place.
Gainsborough is in Lincolnshire. I didn't realize it was called that. But I mean, to be fair, lots of towns are from the Roman times. So yeah,
sure.
Market town,
crazy.
Lincolnshire. So I don't know why I say Lincolnshire. That's when you know they're definitely not English. Oh boy, I'm outing myself today.
My goodness. Okay, well, okay. So we get Canute. Yeah, he arrives there. We get Bjorn's death. We get Askeladd's full backstory. Maybe I should. Oh, actually, I have a thing about how I pronounce Askeladd because we got a bit of information on him. But we got Leif's reunion with Thorfinn. We got Canute's assassination and spreading the rumor that it was King Sweyn who did it. We get Askeladd and Sweyn at the banquet. So we get his death, or both of their deaths, I guess.
Yeah. And
then we get two chapters with
two
Einar.
Kings dying in one chapter. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is actually. I never did consider that. It is crazy, but we end off with the two chapters at the farm. And we end with Einar, who's a slave, meeting or seeing a beautiful woman on a horse, and I'm like, this is really interesting. But anyway, so in terms of overall thoughts, I thought this was great. I think it's probably the fastest that I've read any of these books. I finished a few days ago, but I don't know. It's really.
You're gonna get faster, baby.
I feel like it will. Yeah, it's really easy to read, and the stuff that's in it is very compelling. But I really liked it. And especially, I would say, especially every scene with King Sweyn is just fantastic. I find him very interesting of a character to watch. I don't know why. I feel it's just every scene I see of him, I'm like, I want more, and I want to hear him talk more because he's really. He's not evil. He does bad things or whatever, but he's not evil, and he's very smart, and I don't know, has a lot of interesting insight into a surprising amount of insight, I guess. Yeah, he is. He's just essentially, he's a very compelling character, and I like watching him. He's definitely one of my favorites.
I'm loving these new takes. Everybody, I mean, it's good that, to be fair, you've got the bonus because you've watched the anime before, so you know everybody loves Askeladd, and it was like,
Yeah,
oh
that
my
is
gosh,
true.
Lucius Castus Sartorius, he's back, baby, and all this stuff, and
Yep.
everybody talks about Bjorn's death or Canute, but
Oh,
King
don't worry, we
Sven,
got some
like,
stuff on that.
yeah, I mean, King Sven's not in it very long, and I mean, I've actually I had a mate who had complained to me that he wanted to see the political antics and the mind games go on longer. He felt it was over too quickly, which was like a comment I had never heard before. But I was like, oh, that's fair enough, you know.
Yeah,
but
I can see where they're coming from.
but yeah,
Like I really
yeah, for
enjoyed.
sure.
I just enjoyed the political stuff. I don't know. It's great. Sven's great. I would say more so I like him as a character than him like his actions, I guess. Like I just like listening to him like kind of talk about himself. I don't know. He's cool. But
and he's smart. Like,
he is smart. That's like his thing. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Like he's clearly like worthy of being he's a king not just because of his heritage but because of his ability to politically maneuver. So
yeah.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. I'll talk about that later. But so the last overall thought is that I really enjoyed those final 2 chapters, which are with Einar and on Kettle's farm. I don't know how you pronounce stuff, but I thought it was very interesting. And maybe it's because it's just the first thing I've got to, or I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I really liked it. Like it was just fun reading and not knowing anything. So yeah, that's overall thoughts. Now,
yeah, nice.
I've got 4 pieces of art as usual, and I'll put them on the screen again. So I guess there wasn't too much feedback about last week, but it's not that hard to put them on the screen, and I liked it. It was fun. But the first thing is about a particular, I don't even know where this is from, so thank God I'm putting it on the screen, but it's a panel of, or it's like a whole page where you've got, I think it's when Canute runs into Sven the first time, like their first meeting, and you've got, like this cool paneling where you've got like Sven raising his hand, as you see like Canute on the left, and I don't know, it's nothing, it's not like a big, impactful thing or anything, but I thought it was really cool paneling, you know.
I mean, oh sorry, my nose is a bit stuffed. I'm a bit poorly at the moment. Anyway, but Yukimura loves doing hands. He loves having detailed hands. He loves to tell character through how he draws hands. And I was noticing it too. I'd never really picked up on Sven's hands before, but I'm glad you're bringing this up because
he likes a nice veiny hand, doesn't he? I've seen a few veiny hands like in this. Yeah.
And I love that he does fat fingers. You know, you see so many manga with these like beautiful dainty fingers, you know, where they're really pointy, but he's got some big chubby sausages like my hands. I feel represented.
Yeah, that's always good.
You know, fat fingers represent sausage fingers.
Yeah, you're like King Sven, you know? Right?
Yeah, baby.
All right.
I'm like everybody in this manga.
Well, the next piece of art is one I'm sure that people are very familiar with, but Askeladd's brain, basically, when he's like thinking of what to do. Like I do remember this visual from the anime, and it stood out to me then, and it definitely stands out to me now. It's just something really like, you wouldn't think you'd see this in like a Vinland Saga kind of thing, but I don't know, it looks really cool.
Bit more abstract, yeah. And definitely like it's before the big brain memes, but it is kind of like, you know, that like it does kind of make that like, oh, Askeladd's going next level. Like there was a lot of memes about like big brain moment.
Yep, love it. Now there's 2 more, and they're kind of related. The first one is when Thorfinn sees Canute, I guess, after Canute's killed, or after Canute like kind of yells out to Thorfinn and is like, I don't really know the exact like thing what happens, but essentially it's just Canute seeing Thorfinn's face after Askeladd is dead, and it's just Thorfinn just confused and in shock and sad, but probably angry at the same time, and it looks lost, and I love it.
Yeah, lost is a great word for it. Yeah.
And related to this, probably the best visual in this book is just that big collage you get, like of just everything that's happened so far. And in my mind, it's just Thorfinn. This is just him completely lost, and there's just so much that happens, and he doesn't. I don't know. He's broken, and he doesn't know what to do, and it's just so great. I like it.
Yeah, nice. I was wondering what you think of that. It's cool.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Well, now we can talk about what happens in this book, which is a lot. But the first thing I've got is, I guess we have covered it a little bit, but just talking about Sweyn. And I just like him, which is great. But I guess we've already talked about that, so we'll skip over that. We'll go to the first time we actually meet Sweyn, which is that scene where Canute, Askeladd, and Thorfinn essentially arrive in his like little Sweyn room. And there's like the hidden guards there, and they're like on alert or whatever. But during that scene, there's a very interesting, like, I don't know how to describe it, like a confrontation between Canute and Sweyn, where it's essentially Canute kind of like taunting Sweyn to, because I guess I can explain it this way, where it's like you get Sweyn essentially giving this long speech about how the crown is like it has a mind of its own, and how he's a slave to the crown, and all it wants is to get power and keep power and all that. And then he's like, "Oh, Canute, I'll give you this small area where you can live a comfortable life, and if you refuse, then you'll have to die." And then Canute is like, he's holding back like a laugh or a smile or something, and he's like, "Is that what you're saying, or are they the words of the crown?" Or something like that. And it's just essentially Canute like mocking Sweyn, like implying that Sweyn is using all this fancy language to kind of try and hide the fact, or even just not admit the fact that he just wants to kill his son for whatever reason that is. It's not because of the crown or some like philosophical thing that he's trying to justify it as. He's just killing his son, or trying to kill his son, and I don't know, Canute just shoves it in his face, and I love it. Like it's very interesting as to, like, you're seeing Sweyn, who's very self-aware, but it seems like in this one aspect he can't admit that that's what, like, he just wants his son dead, which is obviously an evil thing to do. And maybe in his mind he just can't justify it, but I don't know. There's something going on here. Like, I find it very interesting, but it's pretty hard to articulate.
Yeah. Well, I guess this will be expanded a little bit upon as Canute's character goes forward, because it is very cool.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Because Canute now, at least in part, he has the crown of England. So he does take the power of the crown to some extent. And seeing how that goes on. But yeah, it is a bit of a confusing thing. And it does feel like he's almost scapegoating the crown in a way. He's like, don't blame me, blame this object, But it is like a metaphorical thing in that, like, like once you get to this position, you become power hungry. You become like what the saying is, like, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And he's kind of saying that it's like he's got like, and when you've got this much power, you want to keep it and control it and maintain it, but also grow it. Like he has this quote where he says, give me more. What was it? I can't remember like the exact quote, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because I would. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh well, I'm just saying Canute kind of starts goading him, and I do think it's interesting. Like Canute sees right through him, but Askeladd like sees a bit further on, like don't
push him. Yeah. I mean, what I would say is that I think all of that thing about like absolute power corrupting absolutely, like I feel like that's it's completely a shield that Sweyn is using. Like I think he's aware of that, like, idiom or whatever you'd call it, where it's like power corrupts absolutely. Like he knows that, but I think he's just purely using that as a shield to justify killing his son. And I don't know why he hates his son. And I don't think we'll ever find out now, but I mean, it feels like it's just purely a shield. I don't know, I could be proven wrong later.
He wants to kill his son because when he dies, when Sweyn dies, he's got two sons that could argue for the throne.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. Like, right? It'll break the kingdom apart. Like if you've got two warring factions. I just feel like he, and obviously this could be completely wrong. I feel like it isn't like, I feel like he just, there's something that he doesn't like about Canute, and I don't think it's explained, but I feel like he's justifying killing him in that way. But by using it's going to split the kingdom. I don't think he really believes that. Because he's too, I don't know, he doesn't see, his character, I don't feel like it fits that, but I don't know. I'd have to reflect on it a bit more.
Okay,
Like, I
'cause
guess, sorry, one more thing, I guess, is that, have you seen Game of Thrones at all?
I have not.
Interesting.
Unfortunately.
Well, there is a certain character in there that he reminds me of. I guess for anyone who's seen it, for Tywin Lannister and his like relationship with Tyrion, it's kind of very reminds me of that a bit. So if anyone out there is like,
I see.
But anyway, yeah,
Yeah, I think like it's one of those things where Sven's tried to play this game and it's backfired because Canute's not died and instead come back stronger. You know, his full intention was Canute to die on the battlefield as a valiant hero, and then Harold would take his throne, easy peasy, you know? But
yeah,
Canute's come back here, not only a different man, but with Thorkel, the strongest,
yeah,
one of the strongest, if not the strongest captain, you know, and who is incredibly well liked and has a lot of charisma along with the chieftains, you know? And that's kind of showed in this thing as well. Like the power of Thorkel should not be underestimated within battle, but also outside of battle. And I think like Sven's just been like, well, this has thrown just a massive wrench in my plans, and he like Sven's put in a bit of a pickle here because I mean we haven't seen much of Harold yet, but like Harold is the eldest son, and so you know he doesn't want his kingdom to be split between Denmark and England, which it may do.
yeah,
So like you could see like a purely pragmatic approach to the crown as well, as maybe he does have like an emotional dislike for Canute, because he does have that I mean the most emotional we see him ever is in that scene when Canute makes something for him, you know, makes him that bowl of food or whatever, that duck, right? And he gets really angry at that. And he says that's not the way of a king, right? But if you're someone like Sven, like why would you care that much? I guess, you know, that like your youngest son is not kingly. I don't know, like so yeah, as you kind of say there is we don't get a lot of answers to Sven, but he does still feel complex if you like think about him for a little bit. So
yeah.
I like that you picked up on this because I wouldn't have thought about it otherwise. Sven's underrated and overhated just because he's the main antagonist. But I feel like that's generally how it is. You know, people do like if there's a character that they hate, they put that like they'll dislike that character more, but not appreciate that they've made them hate them.
I'm the complete opposite. If I hate a character strongly, I love him. Like it's
exactly. Like if you get me angry at your presence, you get me like frustrated, or you make me feel emotion. That's a sign of a great character. No matter what, you know, it's the boring characters that I'm apathetic towards. You know that are ones I dislike weirdly. You know.
Yep, so. I agree. Well, talking about anger, I thought it was amazing to see Sven anger Askeladd in their first meeting. Like you just never seen Askeladd lose his temper like that. He's raging and Thorfinn's like, I've never seen him like this. Like, man, this Sven, he's a force to be reckoned with here, upsetting us like that.
And I didn't pick up at this, but like I think Sven picked up on like his anger and was like, boom, I've pushed a button. I know how to push that later, and that's how he kind of thinks about. I'm not sure if it's confirmed that Floki knows that he's Welsh. I think Askeladd says that no one knows he has ties to Wales, but Sven realizes and takes a gamble that Askeladd may have something to do with Wales, you know. I mean, do they know that he crossed into Wales to get away from Thorkel? I don't think so. Only Thorkel would know that. You know, like, but like, where else would you know of someone being someone growing up as a slave? You know, like, you know, I guess like he's kind of talked about like he's been like, okay, so Askeladd knows the region. Like he's zeroed in on that Askeladd is from, you know, a slave origin. Then he's probably not of, you know, true Danish blood or anything, right?
Yep.
He was in England, and so we either push him by saying, oh, we hit Ireland or we hit Wales, because we already subjugated England. So like he's taking a gamble and a risk, but he finds that he has hit a button with Askeladd basically. So later on, so like you can like he's being very intelligent and just like he's making his own gambles, kind of like Askeladd, and he's a very worthy antagonist to Askeladd in this part of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And a worthy end to Askeladd as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of that scene, that's all I've got. But moving on, this next section is about a particular chapter, which is chapter 45, called His Last Friend. And I've written what happens. So this is the chapter where Thorkel is drinking with Willowbold and the others, and then we get Askeladd's conversation with Atli, I think. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah,
one of the brothers,
yeah.
Atli, yep.
Yeah.
And then we get Askeladd killing Bjorn. Which is and firstly, I want to say this is just a fantastic chapter. Maybe my favorite. Just because it's so, like, it has such a sharp tone where it just feels like it makes Askeladd just feel like a sad, lonely old man, which is nothing like what I had seen him as up to this point. I just love the tone of this chapter.
It is very melancholic, and I mean, it was when I first read Vinland Saga, and probably still is my favorite part of the whole prologue arc. I don't know why, like, Askeladd's end didn't hit nearly as hard as this is for me. Partly because I think I'm quite a big Bjorn fan. I do like him a lot. I think as far as aesthetic, but also because, yeah, he's just an interesting character, and this last moment with him in Askeladd is just, yeah, really terrific.
I'm very interested to talk about Bjorn.
Even in the prior chapter as well, when Bjorn's like wounded and ill, and he's like, well, don't worry, I don't hold grudges like Thorfinn, and there's these small things where you're like, oh, Bjorn's he has Bjorn's not focused on, but he has his moments, which is interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm very interested to talk about it. That's all right. First, I want to talk about the Askeladd Atli scene, and then we're going to talk about Bjorn. There's a lot to say about Bjorn, I think. But so this Askeladd Atli scene. So what happens is that Atli comes and says goodbye to Askeladd, and then Askeladd calls him a good person, or is like, oh, how did such a good person come to join my group or whatever? And then he offers Atli his bracelet, the golden bracelet, and he's happy to give it to him as long as he vows to never swing a sword again because he's not suited for it. And he says that if he sees Atli again, whether as a friend or foe on the battlefield, he'll kill him. And then the scene just ends with Askeladd staring into the distance, across the water at an empty Viking ship on a cold, quiet night. And it's just so great. Now, when I first read it, I was it took me a few readings to try and understand what was happening, because it is quite mixed, quite confusing in that, like, Askeladd is both helping or being kind to this person and telling him he's going to kill him, and it's like, oh, there could be so many reasons for that. But I think that's, in my reading of it, I think that's the whole point, where it's like Askeladd has a lot of mixed emotions on his men, because at this point, on one hand, he's glad that he's finally free of the Danes that he's hated so much, because we get in that backstory how we do get a whole chapter basically on his backstory, where, as far as I understand, he hates the Danes because the reason he gives is that they're stupid, they're filthy, and they're unconcerned with anything but their own base urges. So, on one hand, he's happy. He's like, okay, my men are gone, the Danes, I'm done with the people I've been hanging out with, at least. But then, at the same time, he's probably sad because he grew to like them over time. And they turned out to be better people than he was maybe not expecting, but at least willing to accept it, like, when he was traveling with them. So
like a Gabby arc,
kind of, yeah, where it's like now at the end he's all alone, and it's finally sinking in that he should have he just, I don't know, not regrets maybe, but he's now alone, and he didn't appreciate how, like, important they were when they were with him, when he had people around him. Like, he should have liked them more than he did, and it's just sad. He has a quiet moment looking at the ship, with the empty Viking ship, no one left. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And I think this does talk about, too, I guess, Askeladd's character a little bit. Like, this is the person who killed Bjorn, right?
Yeah.
And maybe Askeladd would kill Atli, or, his brother, because they did, his brother, Thorgrim, that's his name, Thorgrim, did lead the rebellion against Askeladd and all this stuff. I mean, I don't think Askeladd takes it personally, but I think also because maybe Bjorn says he doesn't have any grudges against Atli, that's why Askeladd doesn't go against him, you know? Askeladd
That's
doesn't
also a
want
good
to
point.
not take vengeance. But in this scene, like Askeladd saying Bjorn won't live. He got hit in the guts, you know. He got hit in the guts. Not he doesn't make it personal, like, oh, you hit him in the guts, you know, you stabbed him there, you know, like
Yeah.
his face is, you know, you don't see his face, and that's a classic, like he's hiding emotion and he's being very emotionless in this scene. But you have to realize, like, with the context of the whole chapter is that he's lost his last friend, you know, he knows he's gonna die, and he's very sad about that probably. And he's just bottling it up because he's a stern old man.
That's very interesting. I hadn't actually made the connection between that scene and then him knowing in that scene that Bjorn is probably going to die in the next scene, essentially, because they have planned it. Oh, we'll come and I'll fight you now. I hadn't made that connection. That's a good point.
And on one, I'm going to actually send you these pictures through because I noticed it for the first time when I was reading it this time. But I love this transition. I can't remember if it was in the anime the same. I imagine they could have done it really easily, but like it kind of flows. Like Askeladd's looking exactly the same, but it's transitioned in the background from page to page as you're going across of it. So he's looking out at this Viking ship that you were talking about earlier, and then now he's looking out at this snowy landscape.
Yep. I love that as well.
Very, very cool in his cape. That's for sure.
Yep. So then we can transition now, I guess, to Bjorn's death, which is immediately follows that scene with Atli. And that transition, I guess, does transition to that scene with Bjorn. Now, I have a lot of confusing notes on this, I guess, because firstly, I want to say that I thought this was very sad, like much more sad than when I watched the anime. Like when I watched the anime, I was like, okay, so this is a scene where his friend dies. But reading it now, I was just actually very sad, and I even it very infrequently happens. I teared up when I was reading it, which is something pretty amazing because I've never I have like maybe 2 experiences where that's happened to me reading a manga. So for it to happen already in Vinland Saga, I'm like, wow, this is pretty crazy.
That's fascinating because I thought this scene was really well done in the anime.
Interesting.
I loved the music. I remember, at least how I remember it. I know they did kind of move around some of the events. But yeah, I don't know why, but like I don't know if they changed some of the order or something. So for example, they're currently in York at the beginning of this, I think. And then they go to Gainsborough later, or maybe they go to Gainsborough. Oh, sorry, no, they start in Gainsborough and then go to York. But in the anime, this happens in York. And anyways, they add in some like additional scenes with Thorfinn and Leif that weren't in the manga and all this stuff. And but yeah, I'm like really sad like by it because it feels like a missed potential. And once we get to Bjorn, I do want to give some like extra context to him outside of the manga, which Yukimura has clarified. So
wait, when you say missed potential, what do you mean? Like in regard to
like in not from like the writing standpoint, but like they just weren't able to be friends.
Okay, good. Okay,
Askeladd kept himself like their friendship was only able to go so deep.
All right, that's perfect.
Would prevent it from going.
So my thoughts. Like I thought I was the reason I say it's strange that I teared up because I think I'm tearing up for the wrong reason, maybe, or not what you'd expect, I guess. But maybe it is now that you've said that. What can I say? Like I guess the first thing is that you first see Bjorn come in, where it's like, oh, sorry, Thorfinn, it won't take long. Which already is sad because it's like he knows he's not going to put up much of a fight. Like he knows he's just going to die, and he's like apologizing to Thorfinn, like he's just a nice guy.
And he looks so like weak here, like he's holding his side.
Yeah, he does.
Like his hair's messy, and he's sweating all over. Like he's already half dead, just trying to get to this mountain. You know, like it's like taking a massive effort to get here. To get here, you know. So
I think the art does
it
is a long way of what makes this so emotional to me, just the detail in the art. But I think so. What happens is that when I got to that part where I'll put it up on the screen where you've got essentially Bjorn coming in, and then you get this like close up shot of Bjorn's face, and at that moment I just had this realization. Like a very similar realization to Askeladd in the previous scene where I'm like, I didn't appreciate Bjorn until this moment. Like, I'd been reading this. I haven't got any notes on him or anything, and I'm like, I haven't really given him much thought or anything. I get here, and I'm like, man, this is a person. Like, I'm seeing him up close. Like, I don't think, I'm sure we've seen him up close like this, but I've never really paid attention to him up close like this. And I'm just like, man, I didn't appreciate this guy until now.
You want to go back and reread all the small little scenes?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, like he's a very, like, I don't know if he's an interesting character to me yet or anything, but like I want to know more about him. Like, I want to go back and treasure him now that he's gone, essentially. And like this particular close up shot of him, like in the top right of this page I sent, there's
I'm on it now. Yeah,
like there's something about it where to me it just makes him seem more human. Where like previously to me he just seemed like not a caricature, but like he seemed like a character in a story. Where now that I'm looking at him up close, he just felt more human to me. Like he's just a guy in a helmet. Like he's not some like, oh, he's beyond the mushroom eating like saying.
He's just
a
not
person.
The guy, your typical Viking that is really big and strong and eats his power mushrooms. Because that's kind of like how he is seen before.
Yeah, like he has his own past. He has his own dreams. Like he's just, I'd like put him in this box of like some fantasy guy, but he's just a person. I love it. And like I had this other weird like revelation, which is probably not that relevant, but I don't know if you can you relate to this, where it's like you've known someone for a long time, but then you stare at their face for long enough and you realize you don't really know them at all. Like you see their features and you're like, oh, I don't, like when you've looked at someone long enough, you're like, I guess I've never really paid this much attention to them, and they look different to you in a way. I don't know if you can relate to that, or anyone can who's listening, but that's what happened to me when I looked at Bjorn, and I'm like, wow, I haven't paid attention to him.
I feel like sometimes it's hard because I'm someone who just loves people. I don't know, like I just love being around them. I like generally like my interactions with people are very, very positive. Like I guess you could say I've had a very, very good life where I just like hanging out with people and getting to know them. Generally, they're just fascinating, and the more you get to know about them, the more interesting they are. But I guess the closest thing I can relate to gazing at someone's face is that, and it's more from an artistic perspective of like me just being like analyzing their face and being like, oh, that part of their jawline there or their cheekbone is really cool. That's a cool angle for their face. How that like their face is structured, and that's the artist coming out with me. I've never had like a sense where I'm just like, if anything, I'm making them more impersonal, more objectified by like making like just kind of almost detracting them into like simple shapes, as you would as an artist, where you're trying to figure out how their head is constructed. But I think there are some things where like sometimes where you like lots of times you just don't get to see people like that close where you can see their pores, like when it's eye to eye as well. Like I've been next to people and I've just started gazing at the side of their face and you see the pores, you can see like maybe the how their hairline is working and like, oh, I didn't notice that about their eyes before or something like that, and I don't even do that to my own face in the mirror. Like I've like I remember one time I woke up and I was like, oh, my nose is slightly wonky. I never kind of realized that before, and it must have been from rugby like 2 years ago or something like that, but like I just never quite clocked it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that is kind of what I'm talking about.
I'm trying to relate to what you're saying. I don't think I've had anything quite like it.
So I think I just thought of like a kind of related thing, which is like when you're it's not related to Vinland Saga at all, but if you like repeat a word a lot of times and it doesn't sound like a word anymore, it kind of feels like that. Yes. Where it's like if I'm looking at someone long enough, I just start to not recognize them anymore.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that makes that makes a lot of sense. Like I'm trying to spell a word, I'm like, dude, that doesn't even sound like a word anymore.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm saying it like enough times.
That's what went on with Bjorn in a way. I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but in regard to Bjorn, the last thing I've got is what we mentioned a little bit before, but just that last exchange there where they have where Bjorn's like, I just wanted to be your friend, and then Askeladd's like, you are Bjorn, my one and only friend. And I don't have anything to add. I just thought it was beautiful. Like I teared off. It was I like it a lot.
I think it's also sad because it's not until that moment that Bjorn realizes that Askeladd did care about him. He says, "You're Askeladd. You're clever and strong. I respect you, even if you did hate me along with all your being. Tell me, Askeladd, it wasn't just me. You hated our lost comrades. you even hated yourself. So like Bjorn like is a smart guy. Like he's observed it. He understands that Askeladd's hatred doesn't just come. This is later confirmed in the later parts where he picks up Bjorn's dead body and says, "I'm nothing but a Viking." Like Askeladd reeks of self-loathing. And so like Bjorn is, before Askeladd even says it himself, picks up on it. Yeah, and he says, "Isn't it lonely shutting anyone and everyone? I wished I could have been a friend to you." Yeah, so
I guess, yeah. I do want to talk about like Askeladd and his self-hatred, because I don't think I really understand it. Because there is like that one line, which you just talked about, or I think that's what you were just talking about, which is where, Canute, I think, is talking, like, I think it's also in this chapter where it's like Canute says, "Oh, Askeladd, why don't you become a king?" or something, or in the next chapter.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, weren't you listening? Like I'd be a bad king or whatever because I'm just a Viking," something like that, essentially. And it is because of it, like it is tying in with his self-hatred, but I don't see why he sees himself as a Viking, or like why, not why he see, like I could see obviously why he does, because he hangs with the Vikings and does kind of Viking stuff, but I don't see why he hates himself in that way.
All right, okay. I'll give you my theories once we get there. But yeah, like I just love this scene, and
absolutely.
Like, yeah, Bjorn. I think also Bjorn is weirdly like is the antithesis of what Askeladd described as a Viking. Bjorn we never see given to his urges. He is loyal to the end. He's not, he's really weirdly quite noble. Like, and I mean, I guess he does take the mushroom, which does make him lose him to himself, and make and what in that Canute, Willibald scene where they're talking about the beast of the Vikings, Bjorn is framed as this quintessential beast-like base urges Viking. But Bjorn in every other regard is incredibly like nothing like Askeladd's description of your average Danishman, Daneman, Dane. Sorry, I just called them that. Like
no, that's a great point. I think that even just you saying that, it's nothing I'd really, because I haven't really thought about Bjorn. That's great. I like that a lot. Like, I think that pushes, just thinking about that and how he's the antithesis of, like, Askeladd's hatred of the Danes in a way, or, like, why he would hate them. I love that. Like, I think Bjorn, that pushes him up a bit in my, like, ranking of characters.
Nice. Yeah, actually, you just remind me, I want to hear your tier list ranking of the characters so far.
Oh, boy, yeah.
And I want to see how they evolve. Maybe we could edits. Like, I'm not sure if you could whip up OBS, and I'm not sure if there's like a good tier list. I maybe could try and find one, but
there's probably a bunch of anime ones, right?
Yeah, true. Maybe have a look for anime ones, and I'll try and make one for manga, or something like that next time, or find one, and like for characters you don't know, we can put them in NA.
Sounds good.
Cool. Let's do that later on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now transitioning to Askeladd, I would say. So my first note I've got is that he has this line, and I wish I wrote it, but I didn't. But he had a line essentially that he said where it really reminded me of Canute's hatred of God in Askeladd's hatred of Artorias, where I think it was in his backstory, where he had this line where his mum was about to die, and he has this line of like, if Artorias is not coming now, then when will he come? Like, it has to be us who like does the change or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's just exactly like what Canute is having, but in regard to God in a way, and I guess Canute's father figure as well in Sweyn. So
it's a powerful lie. I'll quote it right now. This is from chapter 47. So we did skip over an important chapter. I'd like to get your thoughts on that one as well. But let's keep them going.
Interesting.
And in an instant I knew, if Artorias would not come to save my mother now, he would never come for us at all. Do you understand, boy? Someone has to do it. Not a hero, not a god, just someone. And I think this is an interesting like claim, like you tie this later on into him sacrificing himself for Canute and Wales. Like I like it is weird, like, because the reason why he said it, if like his mum is like who Artorias would come to save according to his mother's thing, she's very loyal. She always speaks well of him, and she is like, the beacon of the oppressed. She's a slave, and she, was left to die by, the Danes. She was abused. Exploited is a better word for that. Like, so it's a very powerful. Someone has to do it, and not a hero, not a god, just someone.
Yep.
I love it.
I love it too. Yep. Yeah, that whole Askeladd backstory was great. And it took up basically the whole chapter, which was interesting. But the only other thing is in the Askeladd section is me just thinking about why he hates himself, which is a little bit about like what I mentioned before of like, I guess me just not understanding. But one thing I've got is that it is skipping a little bit forward, but when Askeladd dies, and he gives the message to Thorfinn, and I've written it here, and I'll put it up on the screen, I guess, but he says, "Move on, Thorfinn. Don't hang on to this petty bullshit your entire life. You've got to move on. Go further. You were the son of Thor's, so venture beyond the world he saw. That is your true battle. Be a warrior, son of Thor's." Now, from that, I assume that he's talking about himself in a way as well, where he's like talking about his regrets and how he's trying to teach Thorfinn to not make the same mistakes he made. So in that speech, what I read is that it's Askeladd talking about him regretting either his hatred of himself in a way, which is what we have to talk about why he hates himself, or maybe the fact that he regretting that he hated the Danes his whole life for no reason. I guess not for no reason, but just hating them. Like, I think he might regret that. And now he might have realized in his death that he could have lived a happier life if he just let it all go. And he was friends with his friends. Like he wished he could have been with Bjorn, I guess, and Utley even maybe.
Wow.
So I feel like that's what's going on there. But it all comes down to like, why does he hate himself, I guess, as well. But I don't know.
That is a thought. That's really interesting. No, I've never thought of it like that. Like because I always just assumed that because Askeladd kind of like, so the chapter you miss is where Askeladd fights Thorfinn. I'm sorry if you can hear. Hang on, let me close this window in the background. Machine going. Wait. Oh no, my foot's got my.
Oh no.
Okay, cool. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah. All good.
Okay, cool. So like this scene with like his duel with Thorfinn, where he's like he's you can tell like
he's
angry.
You
can tell this like he actually cares about Bjorn, because initially you may be like, maybe just being cold and doesn't actually care about Bjorn, until you see how angry and just pissed off he is.
Yeah,
he's just not in the mood to fight. And then I love how Thorkel in this scene. This is I just want to expose a little bit like Thorkel and Knut in the background having this commentary. At the but I love this. I love Thorkel's line here, and it's kind of like getting at. It's like I like to interpret it as a subtle jab at the power ranking people, like who could Goku beat? Like lots of people when it comes to this stuff, they like rank or who's stronger, Thor's, Askeladd, or Thorkel, or Thorfinn, and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
with characters introduced later on. And I don't want to shame people who like to do that. I like to do it myself. Like, who would win in a fight? But Thorkel kind of says, like, look, strong and weak ain't such a simple matter, see. You can't determine the pecking order by just who beats whom. That's what makes it fun, And then Canute says, oh, I have no such interest in these things. And then, Thorkel gets mad and he says, admit it, you are a woman, aren't you? Show me your cock. Like, it's like a fun little. They took out the "show me your cock" later on. It was one of those funny little.
It's like I don't remember that. All right.
It's like the "show me your cock" is like outside the speech bubble.
Yeah.
Can you see it? Did it send through?
No. I'm just sitting in and listening to your great explanation of this thing. Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's sorry.
Yes.
Discord doesn't
I remember
send it
this.
through.
Yep.
But like I love this expression of Askeladd. Like, he throws away his sword. I heard recently someone made the point that it's almost similar to Thor's throwing away his sword.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, come get me," and then like he just like beats Thorfinn up completely. And I remember this being really good in the anime because I just didn't really quite clock how hard he goes at it.
Yeah.
And then he has this scene where I'm like, dude, he is just so mad he may actually kill Thorfinn in here. Like, today has to be my lucky fucking day. Like he's
Yeah.
just ready to go for it. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's great.
It is. Like
And then
it is this I think this was probably the quickest chapter to read because it was just so like raw in emotion, like feeling what Askeladd is feeling.
yeah,
And it's great. Like good chapter.
yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to go back on it and talk about it a little bit because I forget about it, but like, I mean, you talked about the art again, but it's just like more dramatic lighting.
Oh man, the art
It's
in this
just-
book is so great. Like I
It's
went back because I wanted to particularly I wanted to see what happened with Hordaland at one point. Or we'll talk about that later, I guess. But I went back to book one. And man, is the art so much better now. Like I did not realize
Yeah.
how. Like I remember you said this in book one that it looks more cartoonish in the first one, like less detail and stuff. And it's so clear. Like when I go back now, I'm like, man, it's like night and day. It looks so much better now.
Yeah, and there's like a grubbiness to it, like particularly compared to recent. So Yukimura's art style continues to evolve, and I think in the third major arc, it like feels much cleaner, and it feels a bit more anime, and like the character proportions on the faces. Like you'll notice that like they will like kind of switch up a little bit. You'll notice many scenes where Askeladd doesn't look quite right, but like it works well enough,
Yeah.
like his face isn't perfectly structured, and it adds this like grubbiness and like this dirtiness that I really like, this imperfection feel that I really feel like suits this part of the manga really well. It just really sells it to me. Yeah, anyway, regardless, keep on talking about Askeladd, keep on giving your thoughts.
Well, I mean, the thing about Askeladd is why does he hate himself? I don't know.
Oh, do you want me to explain that?
No, well, I mean, okay, I guess my own because
Look at my theories.
there's like really not obvious, but like I think the most straightforward thing is that he hates himself because he's like his dad. In that he makes a specific comment when he's talking about his backstory of how I the first time I swinged a sword, it was evidence that I am like my father's son because I was like really strong and everything.
Yeah, I have this bastard's blood running through my veins.
Yeah,
or something like that. Like this, like the dialogue is very raw from Askeladd.
Yeah,
a
which
lot of
that
those parts,
I
but
feel
yeah.
like that does that at least that's the main thing I can think of why he would hate himself. But yeah, I'd like to hear what you think.
Cool. Well, I'd like to go back and listen to a video I scripted a while ago where I kind of make this comment to see if I forget anything, but I won't do it.
Mhm.
So my thoughts are is that Askeladd, yeah, I think I like what you say, like he couldn't get past his inherent hatred of the Danes, and so that just made him stuck in this point of stasis. And I think for him, he's just like, I think what Askeladd realizes at the beginning of this book, like, I think I made like maybe I made this in this series, or I've made it before that I say Askeladd doesn't really go through an arc, and I think he does. Like, I mean, the compelling part about Askeladd is finding more and more about him and just watching him do his thing. Like, simultaneously, it's kind of like how the most interesting thing about Eren, to a lot of people who read Attack on Titan, was that we didn't know why he was the way he was, and there's just that inherent mystery to him. And so people got a bit disappointed when he wasn't exactly what they wanted him to be. Askeladd's similar in the sense that he has a lot of mystery to him, but he also goes on this little arc, and he starts it off by basically going YOLO. He says, "Guy, like Bjorn, can you hear the footsteps of Ragnarok coming? Like it's happening. Like, dude, I'm just gonna roll the dice." And I think it's because Askeladd, he talks to Thorfinn on that hill that Thorfinn will eventually beat him because he's getting old, and Askeladd, as you kind of mentioned, like he's just wasted his life, and he hasn't found that Artorias. He's angry at himself because he had to kill. Like we talked about earlier with Thors and Askeladd. Askeladd had to kill Thors just because of how it was, just of how the situation was set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Askeladd almost hates that, like, he couldn't have found Thors on another day when he didn't have this band of Vikings with him that forced him to kill Thors,
Yeah.
Because in that moment, like, Askeladd's just gone from, like, place to place. He's been friends with Bjorn. He's done interesting things, he's had wine, he's had like but it's a very shallow and almost like he felt like his life has amounted to nothing. And then he, takes along, an average job that Floki gives him. He's done it loads, this is nothing new. and he finds out that this guy is a man he'd like to follow. This is the closest thing to Artorias he's ever seen, Thor's,
Yeah.
And he wants to follow him, but he can't because he can't look weak in front of his men. There's just like that whole thing is quite complicated, and the thing is that Thor has to deny his invitation to become leader of the band, and like because so Askeladd says, "Hey, do you want to become leader of us?" Thor has to deny it because if Thor's accepted, then he wouldn't be the Artorias. He'd diminish in value to Askeladd. But that's like Askeladd's only way that he can really find like a way for them to get out of this situation, because like none of the other Vikings there care about following like Artorias. They all just want the gold from Floki, basically. That had been promised. It's like 50 gold pieces. That's a lot of gold, so this is well worth time. They've got him completely surrounded. Thor's is guaranteed to die in this situation because he's got the arrows on him, from above, Like, so Askeladd set up this trap so well that when he wants to get out of this trap, he can't. So he has to kill Thor's, right?
Yeah.
And then Thorfinn comes along. And Askeladd is the reason why he wants to kill Thorfinn and he's so mad at Thorfinn is partially because Thorfinn just refuses to learn, refuses to get over his hate. But that hate, as you kind of specify, is a reflection of his hate towards Norsemen, but also he kind of blames himself that Thorfinn can't become a greater man as long as he's alive. Askeladd has corrupted this potential Artorias, the son of Thor's, to be a Viking that is hateful, vengeful, and lives on his desires. So he's 0-2 at the moment. He's lost 2 Artoriases because of his own self, and he's just angry, that if he didn't just succumb to this lifestyle of a Viking, of his blood line, then he may have been able to actually follow Artorias. But then he thinks, well, would Artorias want me following him? And then he finally does succeed in Canute here, right? So he's gone from wanting to follow Artorias to then, withholding an Artorias from existing, to then trying to actually manufacture an Artorias in Canute. And Canute's worked like a charm. You see them kind of bouncing off each other. Canute's independently thinking of smart situations from Askeladd. They're on the same wavelength, they've got this attunement to him. And so it kind of feels like, okay, Askeladd's actually kind of making a bit of progress. But in this, he's lost his friend, he's lost his entire band, so he's still lost a lot. So I feel like all that it's a complete ramble, but all of this kind of manufactures into this self-hatred for Askeladd, and why it's not because he's inherently got this blood in his veins, it's because he's adopted the lifestyle that he so abhors. Abhors? Is that the word?
I have no idea.
It's not adore, because that's love. Abhors.
Abhor.
Like abhorrent. Yes.
Yeah.
Abhor. Yeah, there you go. Sorry. See, now we're saying the word so much that I forget its actual meaning. It doesn't feel like a word anymore. We're there. We've come full circle.
Yes.
But yeah, that's like...
So it's like the contradiction within Askeladd, kind of. Like his contradiction and the realization of it in a way that makes him hate himself.
And I love that you've like, because I never clocked this really properly, but I love that you've kind of picked up that, his message to Thorfinn at the end is, Askeladd is a bad guy. He does not care. Like, the thing is that Askeladd's just used and abused Thorfinn. I don't like this narrative that people have that Askeladd actually kind of cared about Thorfinn.
Mm-hmm.
He cared for Thorfinn as much as he respected Thor's. But ultimately, when Thorfinn was getting beat up by Thorkel, Askeladd just dips, and he's like, oh, Thorfinn, you're alive? Oh, nice, I can use you further. He doesn't show any remorse for, and he refers to Thorfinn as a pawn, and I think he knows that because he's done this to Thorfinn, he's been this scheming bastard for Thorfinn. He's transformed him into a soulless individual, with only one person, with only like a small personality, that Thorfinn only cares about killing him. Askeladd didn't really try and be a good father figure to him, Askeladd didn't, he took the easy way. He just used Thorfinn for his own benefit, rather than trying to transform him into a better person. And so in this last moment, he's just like, he has this human moment, I guess, with Thorfinn, where he's like, I've got nothing to lose here. I'm just like, this is why I hate kids. I love that line. It's so Askeladd. But then he's eventually just like, Thorfinn, you gotta go further than this, man. Don't end up like me, bro.
Yeah.
he could, and the thing is, Askeladd could have said this earlier. Maybe he could have, like Thorfinn spent a lot of time with him. He spent like 10 years of his life, his formative years. Askeladd could have, nurtured him to actually like him to some regard, but anyway, it's a complex relationship. But anyway, I just like, yeah, sorry, I went on another tangent, but like some people do like to kind of be like, oh, Askeladd actually cared about Thorfinn. I don't think he really did. Askeladd was incredibly selfish, and that's part of the reason why he hates himself. Because he's a bastard. He's a Viking.
He wants to be a better person than he is in a way.
Yeah, and yeah. So I think, yeah. So I mean, this is all kind of all that goes on, and is complex and it's fun to dig into.
So everyone likes him.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't like him for the deep parts. Like, I mean, this is for how you make all great characters. I very much like Askeladd for his depth and not for his superficial traits. And I'm not saying like I'm Omega Brain. Like, I love characters in this manga. As I said earlier, I like Bjorn initially just because I love his vibe. I love the helmet. I love his hair. I love his whole like outfit and just kind of and his general character. I love that on a superficial level. And this is how you make a great character. That like withstands the test of time. You have to make them superficially cool, superficially appealing, but then also when you dig into them, there's stuff there.
Yeah.
I think Askeladd does that for a lot of people. Thorkel, to an extent, also does this as well.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't think people dig into... Yeah, people don't dig into Thorkel as much, but he's also like this. I think this is why people don't like Thorfinn as much in this chapter, in this part of the story, because when they dig into Thorfinn, I'm not saying that he doesn't have interesting parts there, but you have to dig really deep to get stuff out of Thorfinn, and you have to also build upon like later parts in the manga as well.
Yeah.
So if you're just reading this chunk of the story, it's very easy to just be like, well, Thorfinn doesn't really have that, like that depth that I quite like, even though he's quite cool in a fight, But when Askeladd, takes on the king, kind of says this really badass stuff, it's the same thing with Eren, to saying like, oh, look, Eren's got abs now, he's really cool. People will like him just because of that.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not trying to shame people for doing that way. Sometimes you just look at a character design and you're like, dude, I vibe with that. I'm pretty sure this is in this entire manga for me. I just love how the clothes are drawn and just the overall Viking aesthetic. And that's why I love part of the reason why I was just initially drawn to Vinland Saga and I'm able to spend so much time on it. But so what I'm saying is that Askeladd's got both of those traits. He's got intrigue, he's got the superficial badassery, he's got this cool Roman breastplate going on. He's always drawn in a very cool way, and he's quite brutal, and he feels kind of dark, brooding, and complex in a way, like all this stuff. And then you dig into him, you're like, dude, actually, this is really interesting stuff here, and how it then relates to other characters in the manga, how it reflects them, like Thorfinn, how it comes up again thematically later on in the story. Like, to me, they're just kind of like there's. Like, I kind of thought I kind of figured out Askeladd when I read it for the third time. Like, okay, I've gone down it. No, and you've just brought a new thing that I hadn't really thought of before. And that's why I love it. This is why I like it. There's a way to have a different twist on things. And just, even if you've kind of like 75% kind of realized, if you've cocked it like 75%, you just need someone else with a different perspective to come in and just shift it. So, anyway, I've been talking for way too long.
So this read-through series is the best thing ever, right?
Yeah, rereading is good, some may say. Very based.
Yes. Well, we've reached the end of Askeladd's life. We will never see him again. Unless we do. I don't know, we might get flashbacks or something. I feel like we probably won't see him again, but I guess we'll see. But we still have one more scene to talk about.
Okay, cool.
Which is probably should have done this before. I feel
like it's weird, like I'm going through all these things and I'm like reading them and like, yeah, like you could go into a lot more complex like stuff, like how it's cool that Askeladd like orchestrates the slave to die for himself and all this stuff. But
yeah. Actually, I just had a minor thought about Askeladd, which is that his name is Askeladd, right? Or he comes from that.
Yeah.
So I probably should be calling him Askeladd instead of Askeladd, if that makes sense, because it kind of like sounds.
I call him Askeladd. That's cool, man. I like that.
All right.
Yeah. Screw the haters. Askeladd. You don't want to say it like an American.
Yeah, but he's an Ash lad, You gotta...
Askeladd.
Yeah, I guess that makes
Askeladd.
sense. Hey, I like that one.
Saying a Scottish accent. Yeah.
My goodness.
Hey.
Okay.
I apologize to the Scotsmen out there.
We need to talk about the death of Sweyn. So I don't know what we've already covered. Let me see.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one note I've got is that um it was interesting to I guess I don't know why I've got it under this heading, but it's interesting that Sven, when he was younger, was very similar. He was essentially the same as Canute in that he drove his own father into exile because he thought he had a better vision for the realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I guess I bring it up in this like Death of Sven section is that I wonder if this is something that Canute will have to deal with later. If he ever has a son, which I don't think he would because it would go against his whole love discrimination thing, but if he did, like I wonder if how he would have to break that cycle in a way. But yeah, that's my first note.
Okay. Actually, I forgot something that's quite important for Bjorn. Can I just go
Yeah,
back
go
there
ahead.
a little bit?
Absolutely.
So, this is like a tweet from 2011. This is ages ago. So, someone dug this up, and someone asks if there are any gay characters in Vinland Saga. Like, because it's quite, like, historically, it wasn't uncommon for Vikings and bands to be gay. Apparently, I don't know on the historicity of that, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're a bunch of lads and you're on tour for a long time. You know, gay people existed in history. They weren't Christian, you know, so it's not like they had much against being gay. You know, if you look at North mythology, you know, it's all over the place. And then so Yukimura kind of says, I think he said he like confirms that Bjorn was probably gay. So there's that kind of like, I guess, additional thing that maybe and is. I presume that he's probably in love with Askeladd to some extent.
Yeah.
So, or liked him more than just a friend. I mean, he talks about being a friend here. But anyway, so that's just an interesting, like, out of manga context, which may make Bjorn a little bit more interesting, you know.
Yeah,
so.
I'd be going back and reading, seeing if it changed anything.
Yeah. But then that was also 2011, you know, J.K. Rowling moment, you know, whatever. Oh my gosh, Yukimura trying to go woke to appeal to the, you know, the lefties in 2011, you know. So
when did this book come out? I guess, or not the book, but like when was
probably
this
around
originally...
about 2009. I had if I go to the hiatus chart, I made a hiatus chart for this, which is building upon another one, and it says when. Actually, let me just go to the wiki page. Hang on. What? So let's go 47. Vinland Saga, chapter 47 wiki. That's not when Bjorn dies, but the hero is gone. Okay, this is Askeladd's backstory. This came out in September 2008.
Oh wow. Okay. God damn, that's so long ago. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So like. I mean, Yukimura blasted through like loads of chapters weekly. That's like chapter 17 weekly. But he started in 2005. So yeah.
It's crazy to I don't know, it's crazy to think about that when I was in like primary school, Vinland Saga was a thing.
Yukimura's
like it's weird to think
like
about.
Yukimura's slaving away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also bizarre, like I guess like the slowdown for Berserk as well is insane when you think about like how much manga Mura, or even like with Vagabond, how much manga they were producing. You think, have you ever tried just to go in your spare time, take one of these panels we've shown, just try and trace it? It will take you 2 hours, and it won't look as good. You know.
Yeah.
So like, and you're just like, the dude had to come up with this from scratch, and that's only a third of a page.
Yeah.
And he had 48 pages in this chapter. It like, or something ridiculous. And like, dude, how did and like, what was it? Inoue, I don't know if I'm saying his name. Takahiko Inoue, the guy who did Vagabond. He was doing that bi-weekly, so fortnightly. So every 2 weeks he'd have and his art is some of the most detailed art you'll ever see. Like, it's no wonder why the guy at like 62, he's just like, guys, I'm just not gonna finish Vagabond. I'm putting on an indefinite hiatus. Like, I can't be bothered. I'm just like, dude, fair enough. Like this is the author of Slam Dunk. He's hit the highs and the highs, so I mean, that's just how it is, you know. So
it's insane.
Anyway, sorry. On to Sven's death before I so rudely interrupted and derailed everything.
Of course. The death of Sven. The first point we said was about Canute and Sven having a similarity. The next point is about well, I guess it is kind of related to Sven. I don't know why I've got all this under the death of Sven, but it is kind of related to the Sven when he was younger, in that I wonder if he started this war, the current war, for a similar reason to Askeladd in that he knows he's getting old. He knows that, at least we know as the audience now, that when he was younger, he tried to drive his father out to create change in the realm. I wonder if I know this isn't in the text at all, but I wonder if he does feel that he hasn't achieved enough, and now he in his like dying breath or whatever, similar to us, like he kind of wants to achieve something, and that kind of is what created this war. I feel like that could work thematically somehow, but I don't know. I find it interesting.
Yeah, I think it's also like the more power you have, the more able you're to preserve a status quo, and like make a better world, I guess, within like the Danish Empire. You know, the more powerful the Danish Empire, the better the Danes will live.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. I think that's part of it as well. So even if he has good intentions, you know, it may make him do bad stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, you could probably infer it just because of how paralleled he is to Askeladd and stuff, that he's just like I think he knows that he's old, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's not necessarily like the issue with, I guess with, he thinks about his legacy probably. And I think Askeladd also thinks about his legacy, where like Askeladd's like, dude, I've done nothing with my life. What have I done? You know, and Sven's like, the reason why he doesn't want to die there is maybe not even a selfish reason, you know. Well, of course he doesn't want to die. Who wants to die, right? But it's also because like if he dies, then England, they just conquered, all that effort he put into falls apart. And that's what happened historically. You know, Sven dies. I don't remember exactly why, but yeah.
Yep.
England falls apart. So.
Yep. Yeah, I can imagine. I think we're gonna see that in the upcoming arc, but maybe not. I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
But do you have anything else, I guess, you want to talk about Sven in that? I guess a lot happens in this final like thing with Sven, especially with Askeladd going berserk and pretending to be crazy and all that. But I haven't written any notes on that. Like those two notes are the only ones I've got directly about Sven. The other two are like, I've got one note talking about, I was very glad that there was no Thorfinn in jail subplot, which I remember from the anime, which I vaguely remember when I think Leaf saw him in jail or something. And I remember when I was reading it, I was like, oh, I really enjoy what I'm reading with Sven now. I don't want to like go and have a whole chapter now with Thorfinn or something. Like I want to continue, and I was so glad he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So now I don't know if
that's anime original.
That was anime original.
I don't know why they include. Yeah, that was complete anime original.
Oh, terrible edition.
So you have something that you didn't mention was Leaf's initial meeting with Thorfinn.
Yes,
right?
That is true. Yeah. So in regard to that, I don't know. I just thought it was pretty straightforward. Like it's just sad seeing how far Thorfinn has gone. Like I feel like the whole point of that meeting was just to see how far he's gone and contrasted to where he came from. It was great. Yeah, I just didn't have much to say about it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like one of the big emotional draws when I was reading the manga for the first time, like I wasn't like pro Askeladd or even pro Canute. I don't know why, but I just wasn't into them. I was so like pro Thorfinn. I just want Thorfinn to get better. Yeah. You know, I want him to go home. I want him to see his family again. And so when I see like Leaf there, I'm like getting hyped. I'm like, oh, Leaf, recognize Askeladd. You know, how is this going to go? And so it's kind of tragic that you're like, you know, of course Thorfinn's not going to go that easily, but it's that kind of like ripped away.
Yeah.
I don't know that like, and I think like you just see how far Thorfinn has gone. He kind of talks about it like if Askeladd breathes, lives, and shits, like I won't be able to be quenched from my vengeance or something like that. And it's just like a terrifying panel. The Union.
I do remember a lot. I guess a lot of my experiences, because I am rereading this. Like I do remember that. I think I had the bigger impact when I first watched that scene with Leaf. Like particularly because it's the first time like I've seen him old. Like I was like, wow, look at this man. True. He's old now, and he's like scared of Thorfinn in a way, and like it's so sad. But I think I had that impact more when I like watched it the first time than when I was reading. Yeah,
I think I'm gonna steal this from a very good YouTube video by Finhard or Tryhard, released recently. Anyway, so I was tweeting about it. It's very good. If you like Vinland Saga content, you probably already know him and probably already watched that video. But he makes the interesting point is that in this conversation, Thorfinn only asked about Vinland. He doesn't ask about his mother or his sister, and he gets angry when Leaf kind of talks about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like Thorfinn's kind of asking about his father and like a thing that his father wanted to do as if it's another way to reclaim his father's honor, you know? Instead of, because Thorfinn thinks that, you know, I mean, maybe he doesn't even think it anymore, but he's so, it's the sunken cost fallacy of like, he's so far in this that he can't give up not killing Askeladd because he needs to avenge his father and, you know, make him proud, you know, or like, you know, or whatever. That's kind of like what Thorfinn's motivation is. And so he asks about Vinland, like another thing that his father was aspiring towards. And so like that's the first thing he asks about, not his mother or his sister, because then that makes him feel guilty.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Huh.
Anyway, it's just an interesting thing.
No, that's a great point.
That. So like, yeah, like it is one of those points that, you know, lots of people will talk about, oh, Thorfinn's so one note in this prologue, and to some extent he does. He keeps saying the same thing, but if you read into it a little bit and you pay attention, you'll find interesting little details about every single character that you can kind of infer. And so yeah. I also liked Floki scenes in this one. You know, Floki getting mugged off. I think, particularly on the first time reading, you're feeling good. You're like, yeah, Askeladd's going against Floki. He's mugging him off. You know, like Canute returns and like Floki like brings all the guards out, and then Askeladd plays Floki, and then at the end there's this amazing line of like Floki like trying to stop Askeladd, and then it's like, what have you done? You've killed the king. And Askeladd's like, what do you mean? Your king was right before you. You know, it's such a good moment. And you kind of see like Floki puts up a fair bit of like he's getting bossed a little bit, but like Floki put up a better fight than I thought he would, you know?
Yeah.
Particularly for a man who's also somewhat old and not shown. I mean, Floki's never really shown so far to fight. At all. So anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to keep on talking?
Okay, well,
I don't know. There's just so many cool pieces of art.
Okay, okay, I'll go through.
Page spread.
I have a bunch of miscellaneous notes.
Okay, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, just go. I'm just pasting loads of art.
Oh yes. Like, oh my goodness.
I love the arcing blood in this. Like, and probably my favorite. Hang on. What time? I think it's in. So he chops off the head. I don't actually like the double page spread of him chopping off Sven's head that much. It feels, I don't know. It doesn't feel as kinetic as some of the other panels. I don't know. Is there something about it? Because there's one that I don't know why I love it. It's just like his eyes and how it's like, yes, it's this one, like this close up of him stabbing a dude like through the chest. If it loads, it's that middle one there. Like, I don't know. His eyes just like. I don't know. It's just like, chef's kiss. Wow. Merci beaucoup.
Yep.
That's not what they do. Bon appetit. That's it. Bon appetit.
Oh my God. Yes, it's good eyes. Good eyes. I like it. Good. Good.
Dude, this is your show. I'm taking over.
This is our show. We talk.
All right.
I love this art. Everyone is looking at it right now because I put it on the screen, and they're like, "Wow, look at this! It's great. It's beautiful."
Yukimura is an artist.
Yep, he's good at drawing people in motion, and I like it. Now, miscellaneous notes. I got so many. We're just gonna run through them. How low? Hour 17. Not that bad. All right, not that bad. Okay. So my first thing is that in a previous video, I think I briefly mentioned about how I thought that maybe Canute will be like the final villain or be a villain at one point. And I remember why I thought that now, which is that at the end, like after he kills Askeladd, and Thorfinn attacks him, he essentially takes Thorfinn captive. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's probably why I thought he would be a villain. Which, I mean, I don't know what he had to do that, I guess, at that point. Now, I do find out in the next two chapters that Thorfinn is a slave now, so I wonder if that was Canute's doing or not. But if it isn't, then I'm sorry, Canute. I didn't mean to call him a villain. You know, he hasn't done anything wrong yet, but we'll see. Yeah. So my other
So Thorfinn, presumably, I mean, maybe they'll expand on this in season 2 with additional content. But like, because Thorfinn directly attacks the king or the king of England or whatever, you know, like the prince royalty.
Yeah.
That's treason and punished by death.
Yeah.
Instead, Canute saves him and just makes him a slave instead. So he still punishes him to save face in front of his people who see him as a new leader. He doesn't want them to see. So Canute's done the best with what he's given. And Carl made an interesting point at some point. It's like you kind of like, at least for him, because he was thinking that, you know, like Canute gives off them the Griffith vibes, you know.
Yeah.
Like Yukimura understood his audience enough to be like, all right, they may be thinking of Berserk and Griffith, so I'll kind of build up this character that looks very similar, very effeminate, very regal, and is kind of similar in his tact of trying to become, you know, like strong by political maneuvering rather than just brute force, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like you kind of think this is the moment, like in the eclipse, where Canute betrays Thorfinn, but he doesn't actually. And anyway, I didn't really get that vibe.
I mean, there is
I haven't read Berserk at this point, but like I think it's an interesting.
There is that
interesting perspective.
Strange parallel. Not strange. I mean, it's not very parallel. I guess you got Thorfinn like trying to grab it like Canute and then being pulled back, like how Guts is pulled back during the eclipse. Obviously, very different circumstances, but I don't know, another visual parallel. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for that final scene now. But
okay, cool.
Now the completely miscellaneous stuff. We get Willibald, and he looks young. I completely forgot that he wasn't a 50-year-old man or whatever. I saw the reveal. I was like, man, I guess I do remember that from the anime, but I didn't up to that point. It was crazy.
Yeah, nice.
He just looks completely different.
23, I think.
23, yeah. Unbelievable. What a man.
And it makes the context of him being as lost as Canute in some ways earlier on more understandable, because he's not this old wise guy. He's a pretty young guy.
Yeah, absolutely. What, 5 years older than Canute, maybe something like that.
6. Canute's 17, I think.
Yep, true. Okay, well, in chapter 47, we get the first showing of nudity in this thing. And I was like, wow, I guess there is nudity in this manga. And it's become frequent. I think every chapter now has like at least one like panel of someone being naked. Which is really strange because it's like it's not like it started
women
off
specifically.
Is it? Yeah, I guess it is women specifically. Yeah, that's a good point. So I thought it'd be like, oh, you know, when they start a new book, they'd have some new, like maybe at the beginning of the book it would have started, but it just happened in some random chapter where I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting that it started at this point. But yeah, I don't know, it's just a small note.
I think this is probably the most nudity we get like in a short period. Like there is some later on, but if anything, like the sex appeal comes from the male characters later on. Which is quite funny, which is a bit of a meme, you know.
Yeah.
Vinland Saga doesn't sexualize its female characters; it sexualizes male ones.
Terrible.
I know, awful. Can't believe it. Not appealing to your average demographic. Can't believe.
Yep, hate it.
Unbelievable. It's a seinen manga for young men, right, or whatever. Anyway. But yeah, like I mean, lots of it is censored in the anime. You do get the earlier one where Willibald is first introduced talking to the Viking, and they kind of dream of the harem of King Sven. That's probably like the earliest bit of like, I guess, fan arty or sexualized content. But yeah, here you get lots of boobs shown, Canute's guard, multiple slaves getting sold, Olaf's mistress, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's most of it.
Yep.
But yeah,
crazy stuff.
They get pretty. Yeah,
I don't know if I can keep reading. You know, it's too. It's terrible. I can't.
I know.
My goodness.
Yeah, I can't look at this. I mean, the blood and violence is okay, but
yeah,
a bit of nipple. I'm not sure about that.
Yep.
Hold your horses, Yukimura.
Unbelievable. Like, anyway, next point. We got a lot to get through. So when Canute is assassinated, you get like this panel of Askeladd where he is taking a deep breath, and he yells out, "He's been shot!" And I just cracked up laughing. I don't know why. It was just so funny. He's just like, I don't know, taking a moment to prepare himself, you know, to go beyond what he usually is. Yes.
I like that. I like that. Like, it is completely Askeladd's scheme, but not for the reasons we think. You know, like it does generally make you think. Like, if you've been paying attention, you realize that Askeladd's not going to kill Canute. The first time I read it, I was like, "Hang on, wait, did he actually kill Canute?" Like, it did fake me out.
You know what I thought? I thought when I was reading, I was like, if I didn't know that Canute is alive, I would have thought that Canute was a woman this whole time. I'd be like, oh my god, it was revealed he was a woman. And I would have been like, oh man, I can't believe it.
Funny scene.
Like,
yeah.
That's a good subversion there. Next one is kind of a bit more like I guess we could talk about this. I've got. I noticed in chapter 12 and chapter 49, the first page, like the cover page with the title, it's like directly paralleled. Like I remember when I got to 49, I was like, I've seen this before, and I went back in chapter 12. The cover is the exact same, just with different characters, which is interesting. Like I figure there's some reason behind this, and obviously there's like you can make a superficial parallel, I guess, which is like you've got in one of them you've got Thor's at the top, and then Askeladd at the bottom, and then at the next one you've got Thorfinn at the top and Leif like looking shocked at the bottom, and I would say maybe the connection is that you're I don't know, maybe it's like bookending or not bookending, but just emphasizing how far Thorfinn has gone again, like seeing how things were before to how they are now or something. I don't really know.
I don't think I'd reread into it too much. I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but it's more like, I guess, an anticipated confrontation from the previous chapter. So I
that's
didn't
a great
notice
point.
this before.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm just kind of freeballing. But you got like Thor's staring right at Askeladd, and Askeladd staring right at Thor's. Like you're like, okay, these are the two moneymakers here, you know.
Yeah.
And then you've got here a reunion of Thorfinn, Karlsefni, and Leif. It's kind of builds up this anticipation. I think Yukimura is repeating tactics or techniques. That's a better word. Techniques of manga writing to kind of emphasize certain things.
Yep.
Now you bring it up. I think it's 41.
Is it?
There's like a 4-way split.
Yeah. See, that was actually I did see that one when I was going through. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
You made a great point. I think it is just the confrontation. It's a great thing. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Next point. Ylva has 3 children. Crazy. I can't believe it.
Crazy.
I didn't remember that. Did they even mention that in the anime? Any idea? Do you remember that?
I can't remember, but I feel like he would have mentioned it. I don't remember them missing anything.
Well, I was shocked. I was like, wow, I wonder what happens. Like, who's she? Who's the father? Like, what's going on? I want to see more of them. I want to go back. I want a chapter back in Iceland. Do you want to
guess who the father is?
I mean, my guess is Ari, because that's the only character we got.
You're so good, man. You're so good.
It is. Yeah, I knew what I'm a genius. That's literally the only character we saw her interact with, so I don't know. Yep, crazy stuff. Next point. Oh, actually, this was very interesting. I don't know if I forgot, so you're gonna have to like fill me in here. But did we ever get the scene in the manga, of Thorfinn almost killing Askeladd in his sleep? Because I remember that in the anime, definitely. No. We don't get it. That's crazy. No. What a strange addition to the anime, because that has a big implication on Thorfinn's character.
Well, no, it's implied by Askeladd in chapter 2. Saying that, like,
he says it, but we don't see it. Is that?
Yeah. So like, well, no. The quote is from Askeladd. Basically, this guy's like, "Why would you keep someone around who's so willing to kill you?" or something like that. That's just one of those young dudes. And Askeladd says back, "Oh, Thorfinn's warrior's pride gets in the way of that. He would only beat me in a 1-on-1 duel." So it explains that.
Okay.
And so like,
that's reasonable then.
Yeah. So when I watched the manga, like, oh, here we go. I found the panel right now.
Perfect.
Send that. So like when it did appear in the anime, I wasn't like, surprised by it. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a Thorfinn thing to do. Because Thorfinn's whole thing is that Askeladd beat his father in an unfair duel. Like, his father won and deserved to win, but Askeladd used trickery to beat him.
Yep.
And I mean, Thorfinn even talks about this, like when he's following the scout. There's a panel of him saying like, "Oh, all these buffoons, scheming within their walls. Why would they do that?" and all this stuff. So like, Thorfinn's kind of got this weird, like almost like Thorkel-esque view of being a warrior, and so that's why they kind of like, Thorkel gets mad at him because Thorfinn's just like him but less mature.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean,
like,
I think the reason I think it's such a bold choice as well to put in the anime is the fact that it's such a like direct parallel to Askeladd's backstory, where he kills his dad the same way. Like, it's such a bold, like, obviously you can, if they didn't add it in the anime, then it would be fine. But the fact that they're adding is just so like it is a very heavy interpretation of Thorfinn, or a very like it has big thematic implications, like putting in that scene. I think.
I mean, that's part of like this is why Askeladd like gets mad at Thorfinn as well. Is because he talks about how like Vikings have no style or grace anymore, or whatever. Like no style or grace.
Hmm.
And like that's the thing with Thorfinn. Thorfinn doesn't ever try and hide his motivations from Askeladd. Like Askeladd's just the complete opposite in like actual tactics. He's like, let me teach you, boy, how to kill a man you truly hate.
Yeah.
My father, you know, like, and I think that there's also parallels to the fact that like Thorfinn, if you kind of view Askeladd as this pseudo father figure for Thorfinn, you know, Askeladd could kill his father figure. Thorfinn couldn't kill his father figure, so it's kind of this kind of stuff.
Yep.
I also post this thing. This is a thing that Yukimura said in like that's been fan translated. It may be interesting to read in your own time if you want to put it on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So,
I'll have a look at
just
that, and that'll be everyone is reading it right now, and
Yeah.
if you want to read it in detail, you can pause it because I'm probably not going to have it up for minutes. But the final note, the miscellaneous section, is that there's a very big, I don't know if you'd call it an irony or whatever, but there's the fact that the more I enjoy reading, the less notes I take. Which is, it's like ironic because I want to write the notes on the stuff I enjoy the most, but like I just want to read it, you know? Like, and there's so much where I'm like, I want to capture this accurately, but then to have to think about why I like it so much just takes so much effort. And I'm like, I just want to enjoy it, you know? So it's just an irony. I don't know.
Yeah. I think maybe as we go further forward, I should get less nitty gritty because I am treating this as my read through. Maybe I won't read the manga as we go on because I don't want to get burnt out on Vinland Saga. I do kind of want to save myself if I'm going to reread this now, and then also watch it when it comes out in January.
Yeah.
So maybe I won't reread it. So then like we won't be as tempted to go into the nitty gritty like we have been when I'm like posting panels every second. So
yeah. All right. Well, we need to move on now to the final two chapters, which is a completely different arc, I guess. The stuff I've never seen before. On a farm. Crazy. And I'm so excited. I can't believe it. I'm seeing stuff I've never seen. But the first note I've got is that it's you're going to have to teach me here, but it's very interesting that we go to Jutland, which is the place that Askeladd's dad was a hero of. Now, that could be either something very significant or not. If Jutland is like a really big place, if that's like, oh, we're in England, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess like England is a big place. Like, is Jutland like firstly, is it a real place, I guess, or like, is it a big place?
I think it's an area, I want to say.
Wait, so
but
what?
It's also
Sorry?
a big city. It's like an area.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we can have multiple, like... Well, let's look this up real quick.
Yeah, because if it is a small place, then obviously it's very significant that we're there, because it's like, oh,
so
out of all the
Jutland,
places.
Jutland's like an island in Denmark. But yeah, so they're in Jelling. So it's like the top part of Denmark.
I don't know geography. Okay.
I think it's the main island of Denmark. Hold up. Let me. I know some Danish people who read Vinland Saga. I'm very, very sorry.
I'm sorry for everyone. I don't know any geography whatsoever.
Which one is Jutland? I think Jutland's just this big main island. It's like the British Isles. Oh, sorry, Great Britain. Great Britain's the biggest isle. It's the biggest island in the British Isles. But you've also got Ireland. You've also got multiple islands off the coast. So Jutland's the big thing that juts out of mainland. And so they're in Jelling here. I'm not sure where Askeladd's father's from.
Well, yeah. All I know is that they make that line, oh, Askeladd's dad was the hero of Jutland. They definitely, like, I remember that line.
The hero of Jutland.
Yeah. Interesting, you know?
But yeah, so it's an area.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's not
it's
too
like
significant.
Basically saying England.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're in Jelling, which is... I want to get out a map for you, because Jelling is still a town today. We're learning Danish geography in real time.
Yep. Oh my goodness. So they're on that red marker right there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm assuming there used to be a forest there and there's not one anymore because they chop it all down. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, okay, interesting. Yeah. The next thing about these final two chapters is that I never in a million years would have recognized Thorfinn if they didn't say that was Thorfinn. Like, thank God
really?
that, if they didn't say it and they just kept it, like, completely ambiguous and left him as an unknown character for, like, 10 chapters, I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess we're starting with completely new characters. So yeah, I think he looks so different without his hair and, like, he has a beard now a little
The
bit, and
clothes.
yeah, with different clothes. It's interesting. Yeah, love it.
Hmm.
Now in regard to Thorfinn, I feel like he's swung completely to the other extreme of a pendulum. Where like on one hand he used to be all about anger and like oh, all that matters is like killing this guy who killed my dad. Now he's like the complete opposite, where he's like he just doesn't seem to care about anything. He doesn't care about fighting. Um, and I don't know. I feel like he's doing an unhealthy thing, but in the other direction now. So I wonder if like this arc will be about that or something, and then the next arc will maybe be him trying to find balance between these two things or something. Um, but I don't know. It's interesting. Like he feels very
Yeah,
different.
so
Like he's answering
well,
questions and he's not getting angry and stuff. And I'm like, this is interesting.
yeah, I think the best way to describe Thorfinn is pacified entirely.
Sure. Yeah.
You kind of mentioned that he had that panel where he was looking at Canute and he was lost.
Yeah.
Thorfinn kind of like, I mean, Askeladd's question to him while he's dying is like, have you ever thought about what you've done after I'm gone? You know? And the answer to that is no. So Thorfinn has literally, like, he's just wondering. He's just, so I think it says it's been 3 years since then. This is 3 years in the future.
Oh, is it? I didn't
So
even
Thorfinn,
realize that.
yeah, so I think they said it is, like, if you keep paying attention to the dates.
Oh, because I did
think it is.
Oh no! Wait a minute. I think it's 1 year. Because I for a second there,
1 year.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
yes.
Because it's 10:15.
It is a time. It's a time skip of some sort.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah. Basically, yeah. Thorfinn is pacified. He's lived without any purpose because Askeladd's died.
So interesting.
So yeah, I mean that's like one of those things where like people, at least I've heard, I haven't really heard that many people say it nowadays, or even since I started reading the manga like 3 years ago. But supposedly back when this originally released, people were like, hang on, wait, like they've killed off the best character in the series. Thorfinn's completely different. This is the new characters. What is this like? It's completely different. I don't like it anymore.
Oh man, I like it so much. I just like because it's so different that I like it. Like I think what I don't know how to describe.
It's just interesting. You're just like, hang on, why would the author do this?
Yeah,
I'm intrigued.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now when I was reading, this is another note I've got. I just never realized that throughout this whole story, Thorfinn has never had a friend. Like he's had his family, he has his dad and sister and everything. He just doesn't have like a specific friend. Like which I imagine most people in like I don't know, most people I know, we all had like at least one friend when we were growing up. Where it's like, oh, that's my friend, you know.
Yeah.
But Thorfinn doesn't have anyone. Like he had all these kids when he was younger, but he didn't seem to have like a specific like friend.
But when he left before, like, are you really friends with your friends when you're 6? Like you are, but like. True. Not really, it's different. So.
Yeah, so it's very, very interesting that now he's gonna have seemingly he's gonna have a friend in Einar. Was that his name? Einar?
Yes,
yeah.
Einar.
Yeah. So I think that's a really compelling story. To see what happens there with Thorfinn's first friend in a way, if he becomes a friend.
And what are your thoughts of Einar?
Oh, I love him. Like it was really cool just seeing him. I don't know, following his life. I don't know. It was just cool seeing someone completely different from everything we've seen so far. He's very like he's very positive, I guess, surprisingly for being a slave.
Very peppy.
Like he didn't give he hasn't lost his spirit yet. At least he didn't while he was a slave, and now he's given the best deal in the world, which is like almost too good to believe. With Kettle, I think is the farmer. Yeah. I can't believe it. What a great deal. You get this land, you gotta sell me the stuff, and eventually you'll be free. And I'm like, man, what a great man that is given this opportunity.
I mean, I slavery isn't good. Just
no, but I mean, in the context
for
of slavery,
a slave,
yeah. Like obviously in our world it's terrible, but like for him, like he thought he was gonna be so much worse than like that's probably the best situation for slavery you could imagine.
Yeah,
right? like
particularly the other guy like could have chosen to be his like sexual companion, shall we say?
Absolutely,
but no. So Einar got a pretty good deal.
He did,
and it's interesting.
I was very surprised to see that. Firstly,
yeah. So, but like you can see that the reason Kettle's pretty smart because Kettle asks like, "Do you speak Norse? What do you do?" And Einar's like, "Oh, I've tended fields in the past." And instantly he's like, "Okay, I found the guy. I'll buy him. You're big, you're tall, you're strong." Einar's quite tall. You may have not quite noticed it because he's next to Thorfinn, who's quite short. But Einar's like taller than your average Norseman as well. So he's a big lad, and so like once they get rid of all these trees, they'll have someone who already knows about doing wheat and stuff. So high production for cattle, of course.
Yeah.
So
everyone wins.
Yeah, and so what were your thoughts of Kettle so far?
Okay, well, Kettle is I don't know. He feels too good to be true in that he's like, I guess I can talk about this in the predictions because I did make a few predictions, but like
yeah. Let's transition into the predictions.
So sure. We'll get to Kettle at the end, I think, but
cool.
Firstly, with Thorfinn, okay, I have so many like these predictions are ridiculous and contradictory, and I don't know what's gonna happen.
Let's do it.
So Thorfinn, the first thing is that I think I said this last video where I think the purpose of Vinland Saga is about Thorfinn finding a meaning in life. Now that could very well be proven wrong, but I think that's at least how I'm reading it at the moment. Now my wild prediction is that I think the meaning he's going to find in life is to live in the moment and not care about these big sweeping kind of grudges and I don't know. I think it's just going to be a kind of message like that, but that's my wild prediction about Thorfinn. He's going to find to be happy in the moment. Now,
all right.
I think another prediction about Thorfinn is that I think he's going to have to... this is also not very related to what I just read, but I think in general, I think he's going to have a child like Thor's. Because when Thor's had his realization was when he had a child, so I think Thorfinn is going to eventually, to fully understand Thor's, he's going to have a child as well one day.
Interesting.
So I think that's going to happen.
So you want to see Thorfinn get a girlfriend, huh? Or boyfriend?
Well,
actually, no, it had to be girlfriend.
Yeah, that is a good point. I didn't even consider him getting a girlfriend. Like, yeah, I guess he would have to get a child. Yeah. That's a great point. Like, I wondered that. I can't imagine Thorfinn with a significant other. Man, that's good. Okay, that's a great thing to think about, actually. But yep. All right, that's the first thing. In regard to Canute, wild prediction. I think that Thorfinn's first. I think Thorfinn will be angry at him the next time he sees him. And I think he will have a chance to kill Canute, but he will spare him, and that will be like the big lesson, Oh man, I've gotten over my anger and violence and destruction, and I'm gonna spare him. So that's another wild prediction.
Cool. Cool. I'm liking this a lot.
Okay.
It's fun.
I think that Canute. So what I've written is that his goal is to create a paradise on Earth, which he talks about in this book specifically. But I don't know how this is going to relate to the idea of love and no discrimination. So what I'm thinking is maybe he will have like a really sweeping, like big goal of like something like abolishing slavery or like ending the actual monarchy or whatever it is that is discriminating. Because those are two like pretty big things that are about discriminating. And I think maybe he'll end them or try to end them. And I think that will be what gets him killed. Because he's trying to be too bold or something, and that might get him killed. So I don't know. That's another kind of bold guess. Cool. Next is that I think Thorkel will die in whatever the next large battle is. Like he just has to. Like I can't see him. Like I don't know. I can't see him continuing in this story for some reason. I feel like he's already had so many big like battles, and I feel like he just has to die in the next large like confrontation we get with him.
All right. Cool.
Yep. Now, in regard to...
Sorry, I'm trying to give away, like, zero.
No, that's good. I like it. Now, I've got two more. So, the first one, I guess both of these are about what I think is going to happen with this particular arc, like, on the farm. Just, like, they're, like, two completely opposite predictions. But my first one is that Thorfinn and Einar will spend time on the farm, and slowly they will become good friends, and then Einar will fall in love with that woman he saw at the... or I guess he already has fallen in love, but both of them, I guess, will fall in love... together or something, that woman and him, at the back of that horse that he saw at the end of this chapter, and that will be insulting to Kettle or something for some reason. Maybe it's his daughter or something, I don't know. So then Thorfinn is going to be ordered to kill Einar, and that's going to be his big challenge in that he's got a friend now, and now he's being ordered to kill him. Like, does he do it? Like, I don't know. I feel like that would be very interesting. Now, the other thing going on simultaneously is because I don't think this arc will, and maybe it'll just focus on Thorfinn, but I don't think it will. I think we'll also get some Canute, because he's a big character as well. So I feel like Canute will have to like his story will be about fighting, because obviously he has to fight the English now that everything has happened and Sven is dead, and that's going to cause uprising with the English. And I know like in real life, England is still a place, and the English aren't occupied by the Danish or anything. So I think he has to lose. Or maybe he won't lose, and there'll be like a mutual agreement of like peace with England or something. Or I don't know. But essentially, I don't think things are going to go well for Canute, especially in that war. But I guess we'll see. Now my final prediction, which is kind of the complete opposite of what I said before about the farm stuff, is that I think this is less likely. Like, I think that what I said before, I like that more than what I'm going to say now. But another possibility is that Einar will marry that woman and it'll all work out well. And Thorfinn will learn, or he'll get closer to understanding Thor's philosophy by seeing the child that Einar and that woman have, and maybe growing close to that child in a way and seeing it as like his own in a way. Maybe that could also be a thing, because somehow he has to eventually learn what Thor's was thinking. So it has to somehow relate to a child, and that's the only way I could see a child at the moment. But yep, those are my wild predictions.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's
So
everything I've got.
Kettle will be like.
Kettle.
Is your prediction that Kettle will be like a bit of a villain, or
so? Kettle is he terrifies me because he's too nice. Like, oh man, like when he has this one. I'll put it up. I haven't got it here, but I'll put it up in the video where I think the final page of chapter 56, where he comes on that horse and you got the woman at the back. He looks scary. Like when Einar is looking up at him and Kettle's like, he's saying nice things. He's like, oh, how was your day? Blah, blah, blah. But he just looks scary. And I feel like he's either he actually is just really nice, or he is very evil. Like he will torture someone or something. And I don't know. He feels too good to be true, is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
His face is cut off like half by a panel at some point. That is quite ominous.
Yeah, there is something where I'm like, man, this guy, like, he's so nice, but he's scary. And also he kind of looks like Askeladd in a way. That's not related to me fearing him or anything, but like
he's got the goatee, true.
Yeah. So I don't know. Kind of scares me. I think he'll do something bad, but
and then you've also got the farm hands, which are also introduced.
Yeah, I mean they're like, maybe they'll become big characters. I don't feel like they'll become big characters, but I don't know. They're just cool. Kind of jealous of their the deal that these slaves have, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But I like this. Like, I'm so looking forward to starting the next book, man.
Yeah, well, let's stop with this recording and get going.
Yeah, all right.
But yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's very interesting. Thank you.
I hope everyone enjoyed this then.
We still managed to go on for an hour and 50 minutes or something.
Yeah, that's true.
No, not quite.
I'll cut out a little bit, there's finding pages and stuff.
There's lots to cut out. Yeah, lots of cutting.
Yep. But yes, thanks for listening. We're finally beyond the anime. Next book is going to be interesting. Maybe I'll have more insights. Maybe I'll have much fewer insights. I'm very much looking forward to it. And yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Woo! And we'll see you guys next time on Ordinary Ari. Bye-bye.